All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Everything School HQ here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where the Tennessee Volunteers decimated the Austin P. Bucks. What are they? Not Bucks. What is Austin P? Something.
Austin P. I want to say they're like the Colonels or something like that.
Maybe that's right.
I'll get on that one.
Well, they were in TBA tonight and got beat by 40+ here by the Tennessee top 10 basketball program.
Governors.
Governors, that's what it is. Not a lot of governors out there. I think is that the only one you know of?
The only one I know of, yeah.
Also here, down there in Decula, Georgia, my good friend from the University of North Georgia alumni, Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back with you on a Wednesday night, Thursday morning for the listeners out there. But yeah, man, National Signing Day, huge day. I don't know about you. I don't want to get on my soapbox here right off the bat, but National Signing Day isn't what it used to be. Like when it was just February, it was like a national holiday for me, honestly. It was like incredible, like so much chaos just guaranteed to happen every year. Now it's like with the early signing period, it just feels like the whole recruiting process is so much more sped up these days. I think they said something like 90% of like the top 150 was like committed, like coming into the day. Like it didn't seem to be like those marquee like announcements you're waiting on, like 4 or 5 stars announcing on signing day, that sort of thing. Like, you know, the huge flips and everything. Obviously we had Travis Hunter last year. That was like the craziest thing that's ever happened on signing day. But I don't know if it's an NIL thing, like result of like you kind of want to get your brand out there, get with the school early and start. I don't know. Everything seems more built up, but also the 2 signing days. But I don't know what you thought, but it feels like less like anticipation, more just like going through the motions and making sure your class stays intact.
Well, I think it's probably a combination of things. I will say like 2/3 of Tennessee's 2023 class has been doing bowl practice with the team all week. So I think that's part of it is you get to midterm enrollee and enroll early and just kind of get ahead. Like you're kind of behind if you wait until February or you are a summer enrollee. That's several months of just not being around the team and learning the playbook and showing the coaches where you're at and that sort of thing. So I think that's part of why it's sped up. I think another part of the flip is coaches kind of have to move quicker now. You kind of you want to get your spot in, right? For a lot of these kids, they don't want to dilly-dally because NIL and with the portal and everything else, things just move so quickly that when you find a good spot, you really are risking a lot by giving that spot up or holding out for something better. You want to just kind of plant your flag in a lot of ways, and if it doesn't work out, guess what? You can just leave in a year. But you want to go ahead and put that stamp and just get comfortable and be in a good spot as early as possible. And I think that's why a lot of kids have been committed for a while. And then the NIL component too, where that's probably already been locked in for a while, that you're like, it's just going to take a lot. And then you're kind of wondering.
You knew back like in October, it's like, well, I'm going to get the best NIL deal if I go to College Station or if I go to Tuscaloosa or something. So I'm going to just go ahead and lock that up as soon as I can.
Right. So I don't know. I get what you're saying with the whole missing the anticipation are part of all of it, and just wondering where people are going to go. I mean, we still have renowned, like you said, Travis Hunter last year. But I just I think with social media, I think reporters just get so much more now that you can just go on Twitter and it's kind of like known. Somebody has a scoop on where a player is going. It's very hard to just be completely in the dark about where these kids are headed. But
that's a good point. It's how Woj ruined the NBA draft. It's like the NBA draft used to be like amazing until like Woj knows every pick like 3 minutes before it's about to be picked, and everyone's on their phone, so everyone knows. But yeah, that's a good point too. It could just be me being a spoiled Georgia fan over here, and us just having the number 2 class, this elite class, kind of wrapped up for weeks and no drama really going into signing day, and then you sign a 5. Let's add just one more 5-star to the class on signing day. No big deal. It felt like the quietest number 2 class I can ever remember as a Georgia fan.
If Haynes ended up going to UJ, are they flipping with Bama 1-2 or no? Do you think that's not
Justice
enough?
Haynes?
Yeah.
I think they had a bigger lead than that, but what did it end up? I think Georgia's at 315 or so. I had the rankings pulled up on one of my windows over here, but yeah, and Alabama's in 320 something, but let me see if I can find it. But yeah, I'm not sure if they would have caught him, but yeah, it's Alabama. This class is it's absurd, really. It just 6 5-stars, 24 stars in a 27-person class. But yeah, Alabama's at 326.06, and Georgia's at 309.38 in the composite rankings. So that may have flipped it a few points, but I think they had that number 1 spot solidified. And with all the madness, I don't know how Alabama has so many spots. It seems like every year they got 25 guys going into signing day, and they're the team that gets the most guys on signing day. It gets adds 3 or 4 more 5-stars on signing day every year.
Well, remember, you don't have to have 25 anymore with the portal, with the limit. The main thing is not 25, it's 85. So you can take 40 high school kids now if you want to, but that means you're going to have to kick a bunch of kids into the portal if you want to do that.
A bunch of guys might already be going to the portal. So I guess that's probably the best way to build your team. You're getting the guys with the most upside out of high school. If you can get this elite of a class, obviously Nick Saban knows a little something about recruiting. So that goes without saying.
I think we talked about this too. It's just that Tennessee had to, you start off with the portal when you're starting at a new program. You just hit it hard just to fill bodies, because generally speaking now, if you take over a new program, a lot of kids dip. Stanford just had it. You'll just see when the coach leaves, it's just a mass exodus, and you kind of have to fill a bunch of spots at the portal. And then the best way of going about it is 80 to 90% of your roster should be the homegrown guys that you bring in if you're recruiting that well, and then you fill the edges and fill the misses with the portal kids. That's how it should be. So Tennessee fans are freaking out about the portal, and it's man, this is part of it. If you're going to bring in this much talent and Tennessee finishes in the top 10, it looks like for this class, it's they have to play. That's part of this now. Georgia does it all the time. Malachi Starks, true freshman, started just about Did he start every game this year?
Just about. I don't know if he was on the first play of that Oregon game, but also Dan Jackson got hurt pretty early on. But he's basically a starter from game 1.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've had on the offensive line and defensive line starters from day 1. I know at linebacker too, right? You've had some day 1 freshman starters there.
It doesn't seem like Georgia necessarily has had that many day 1 starters in recent years.
Or at least contributing
but it's probably
strong.
Just because, how elite they've been recruiting, that it just kind of takes just about everyone a year or two to get on the field. It's you see a guy like Nakobe Dean or a Trayvon Walker where playing those situational roles as freshmen and then starting as sophomores. Trayvon Walker may have not started until his junior year actually, but yeah, it's you just got to stack elite classes on elite classes, and obviously the portal, like you said, it's a good place to fill gaps. It's not necessarily how you want to build your foundation. The foundation, you gotta do that on signing day.
And I was listening to Austin Price of AllQuest today, and he made a good point where it's I wonder if one of the things we see with the portal, you see JT Daniels ending up at Rice, and we'll get into some of these portal stories where it's I think there's just so much out there. It's man, you're going backwards, and you get in the portal zone, and it's just, I think for a lot of kids, these coaches are going to be able to show it doesn't work for most of these guys, and most of the portal, you're going backwards for a lot of these programs. And I think part of it is the red flags of if you enter the portal after 1 year, a lot of coaches are going to be why did you give up on this good situation after a year. Like that, I wonder if we see a pivot where kids, you don't have a rule per se, but it's just kind of understood around FBS that like you need to stick it out for a couple of years and see if you can make it work and then enter the portal. If you gave it a real shot after 2 to 3 years, then you enter the portal.
Maybe, yeah, you got to be there 2 years to get a free transfer.
Yeah,
it's
that would be good. I would like that.
If you want to go after 1 year to go play immediately, it's like you're just mad you didn't start year one.
Yes.
Like, relax. I could be down with something like that. It's just everyone's situation is different. So you look at JT Daniels and it's like, oh, haha, like this is his fourth school now, like. But there's a guy like a Matt Landers or something who was at Georgia and did basically nothing. Most of the fan base is not very high on Matt Landers. Goes to Toledo as basically like getting sent out of the minor leagues, and then goes to Arkansas, and he's probably Arkansas's best receiver this year. Like may have turned himself into an NFL player from getting that exposure of having a good year at Arkansas for a year. He might be back for another year. I'm not sure how much eligibility he specifically has left, but yeah, it's hard. It's a case by case basis, and you're gonna see like some of the guys. It's like, yeah, you're gonna find out that's why he wasn't playing at his previous school. Jermaine Burton, it's like, oh, if he goes to Alabama, he'll be a 1,500-yard receiver. It's like, well, maybe not. Maybe there's a reason he was kind of getting the same amount of touches as 3 or 4 other guys on Georgia's team. It's because he's a fine player. He's just not a superstar. But
yeah,
I don't know. You're kind of getting off on a tangent, but I don't know. From back to signing day, what I found interesting was the looking at the top 10 in the rankings is all the first and second year head coaches on this, because you kind of talked about how you have to go to the portal for that first class, for that an initial class. It's not even your really first class. And then to see so many coaches in their first actual class. Mario Cristobal has Miami at number 4. Brian Kelly has LSU at number 6. Landing with Oregon at number 7. Even Brent Venables with Oklahoma at 8. Marcus Freeman with Notre Dame at 9. Like, that's huge for all of these guys' first full recruiting class, to get that bump of a class, and also the second year guys like Sarkisian with Texas has the 3rd ranked class, and Heupel with the 10th ranked class. It's almost the entire top 10, other than Georgia and Alabama there at the top, is a bunch of first and second year head coaches, and I think that's huge for like kind of the future of the sport. I think the parity and like seeing how much buzz a lot of these programs are creating from year one.
For sure. Matt Green, National Signing Day, early National Signing Day. Like you said, we still got like 10% of guys. Like Cormani McLean is still out there as of this recording, so we'll see what happens with him.
And Alabama could add him too, it sounds like. But he's still a Miami commit, but I feel like if you don't sign on early signing day, you're as good as uncommitted at this point.
He's a sad story to me. Can I say that? Is that his take with a capital T? Where this is like, oh, this is like the worst of the modern college football, where it's like, oh, you're not looking at fit at all or university at all. Like, this is clear. Like, it doesn't matter scheme. It doesn't matter. Like, if you're going from Colorado to Miami to Florida to Bama, this is not like a scheme thing. This is not like who's going to put me in the best position to develop into the best corner possible. This is like, I'm going to make as much money as humanly possible right out of the gate. And look, I get it.
But well, that's not fair, though. How can you say that? I mean, Mario Cristobal, like, he's a big-time recruiter. He's landed big-time guys before. So he goes to Miami. Is he from South Florida? He's from somewhere
He's from
Florida.
Right? I know that.
But yeah, it's like, it's not going to be a surprise really if he goes to Miami. Everyone in the world thought he was going to Florida when he announced a few months ago, and that kind of took everyone by surprise. Georgia, I mean, Kirby Smart's got a track record of what he can do with defensive backs. Alabama's got a track record of what they do with defensive backs the next level. And then you talk about the greatest corner of all time, like wanting to play for this guy. Like, I can't necessarily say it's all about the money. Like, Colorado is just such a interesting like program right now, like playing for prime time, and also the fact that Apparently, Dion is the only one on staff who has the authority to offer scholarships to corners. Apparently, that's like the thing. So it's such a recruiting ploy, you know. But like that's Dion, so he's like can come to the table like I'm the greatest ever, and I think you're worth a scholarship. Like I mean, it's hard to say no to Dion. So I don't know. I can't necessarily say it's just all about NIL. There's a lot of reasons for guys to make these decisions.
I don't disagree, and I don't mean to come off as harsh or like that it's only about that. What I'm saying is just that like he didn't sign today, and it seems like if it was, I just worry about kids who are prioritizing, because ultimately you still want to go to the best situation to develop. Look what like I guess my thing is like if you're Cromani, you don't want to fall in what happened to Texas A&M. Is my main point there.
But also Miami has been kind of one of the biggest teams in regards of NIL that people have talked about. So. But what maybe I'm saying is Miami was the most NIL money he could get, and he's like, maybe I should think about going somewhere that's a better fit. So we don't necessarily know why this guy is making a decision.
I'm not saying I do.
Maybe he just like didn't feel good this morning. He's going to sign tomorrow. Like I don't even know.
Very possible. What I am saying is just that like, and look, I cannot stress this enough. I'm not like going after the kid or anything like that. I am saying that like what we saw with A&M this past year. Right, where you get this amazing class, and a lot of guys chose Texas A&M for a reason, as Lane Kiffin or Nick Saban pointed out last year in a very fun spat and war of words with Jimbo Fisher. But what you saw is like scheme and just where the team is should matter. Like I think kids should think about that. I just encourage kids to really consider, even if the NIL is not better at a certain place. If you think you're going to develop better and you're going to be on a better team, like that just goes such a long way. Like Texas A&M has this mass exodus and a lot of guys hopping out, and you're like, all right, well now you're already on school number 2, and you saw with JT Daniels and guys like that, this can get ugly in a hurry. You can go from Clemson to Hawaii very quick if you choose wrong here, and I just think you got to be careful. Like Miami was not good last year. Colorado was 1-11 last year. You go up and down the list and you're like, all right, I mean, Florida has done a good job putting corners in the league. I would probably lean safe, but I mean, Bama's probably the safest of the choices here. But I don't know. I just think that it's important within the NIL era to not forget going to a team that wins a lot of football games or going to a program that is going to develop you the best is still the best, or should be the number one important thing for these kids. Because if you're going to a Power 5 school or something like that, you're trying to get to the league by and large. Most of those kids are trying to get to the league. So prioritize those universities that do the best job developing you to get to the league, even if the NIL money or whatever is not as good. The package might not be as good.
Without a doubt, because that guaranteed first-round pick money is way more important than any NIL money you can get. Mm-hmm. But some guys do max out in college, so you might have to get that bag as soon as you can. So who knows?
For sure, and it's tough, man, because these are 17-year-old kids having to make a lot of really tough life decisions that I am not envious of whatsoever. I can only imagine the stress. Like you have Shane Beamer in the trees. You have Pete Golding, allegedly trying to get into Arian Carter's recruitment at his high school. I think was the story there. Don't quote me on that, but there was something like just at the last moment, still trying to get in there to get Arian Carter to not commit to Tennessee and go to Bama. You're like, man, it's a lot. Like kids, just these coaches calling you nonstop and just all this kind of like, here's what it is, and trying to parse through what's real and what's not. I don't know. I don't envy the situation that a lot of these premier players find themselves in, because that's a lot for a 17-year-old kid.
No, it definitely is, but it's the nature of the beast.
It is. Matt Green, your National Signing Day winners are who?
I would say Oregon is definitely probably the obvious one off the top of my. I mean, other than really Alabama and Georgia, because I feel like they kind of their two classes are above the the rest. I kind of feel like kind of head and shoulders. It feels like it's Alabama, Georgia, and everyone else. I feel like that 300 threshold and the composite ranking is usually kind of a good like barometer of an elite class. And they're the only two that finished over 300 this year, at least at the early signing day. But Oregon to go from 14th to 7th today, I feel like Oregon, after losing Dante Moore too to UCLA, but I thought that was huge. And then maybe Auburn. I feel like Auburn raising up like 40 points, getting a Ohio State flip, a Florida State flip. Like they finished super strong. At 19, I think they rose. Yeah, I think they rose something like 40 spots today. And then after that,
can we also point out Oregon has 33 commitments in this class. 33.
Yeah, that's a huge. Wait, 33
commits. Yes, Tennessee has 29. They have 33 commits.
Wow.
And DJ
so is that counting portal guys?
I think it is counting portal guys.
Okay.
Yeah. So they have five, or hold on, maybe it's not counting portal guys. I don't think it is.
I'm looking at the rankings. I'm looking at showing them at 28 and showing Tennessee at 25.
That must be portal guys. Yeah, it's including portal guys.
Which is, I don't even know how to really rank the portal guys. You know, I mean, I guess we really don't know how to rank high school players. We just accept this kind of arbitrary ranking system they've come up with. That's done wonders for us in the past, but. So it's obviously an inexact science to begin with, but I think Oregon is just they're building something really, really strong. Like I think it's unfortunate to lose Dante Moore, but you know, to get another year of Bo Nix and kind of close the way they did, like I think Dan Lanning's building something.
And they flipped the Baylor kid, the quarterback, Austin Novosad. Who's a 4-star, good player. Obviously not Dante Moore, but I think it was a pretty big one. They get DJ's brother. They get Jurion Dickey. They did well in the state of California. You look up and down the list, it's like, okay, they did really good out west. They got some big ones out of Texas. I don't think, as of this recording, Peyton Bowen signed, but he's a 5-star safety. Who's a commit to them. We'll see if he does it. And then, like you said, like Trayshawn Holden transfers in from Bama. They get Kyrie Jackson from Bama, and they get the Rhode Island offensive tackle, who's a huge guy. He was visiting Tennessee this week. Tennessee ends up taking the Texas lineman offensive tackle, and then this one goes to AJ Cornelius goes to Oregon. So, I mean, up and down the list, he did a great job, especially, too, when you consider, Matt Green, that he lost his offensive coordinator just not long ago to Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham, and that could have disrupted this class where it's like all the offensive players like, are we sure? Because Dan Lanning's not an offensive guy, right? Like you could have lost a lot of these guys who were like, we'll have to see. We were really going for the Kenny Dillingham offense. We don't really know what you're going to do. And obviously you hire well with the UTSA connection, which I'm going to guess is part of why you get the Texas kid, the Baylor kid, to commit to Oregon is because of the OC from UTSA who takes over, Will Stein, as Oregon's offensive coordinator. But yeah, no, I think they had a humongous day rising up to number 3. And if you're an Oregon fan, you feel really good because I didn't see that coming whatsoever. And like you said, Auburn moving up 40 spots. I don't think Brian Harsin was going to be able to pull that off had he still been in the fold.
Another one I think is interesting is TCU at 18. Because you look at TCU, the last 4 classes they've had, average rank is 38th over the last 4 years. And if you also look at, 10 SEC teams finished top 25 in the rankings. But if you add Oklahoma and Texas into that, that's 12 SEC teams, right? If you take, on the flip side, if you take Oklahoma and Texas out of the Big 12, TCU at 18, that's the number 1 class in the Big 12. Like, it's a big drop-off after Texas and Oklahoma. But, like, after TCU, you got Texas Tech, and then, a little lower, you got Kansas State and Baylor coming up. But, so, I think a lot was always made of, like, how Clemson and Oklahoma, it's like, they go to the playoff every year, but they don't have top 3, top 5 classes every year. Like, why can't other teams do that? Yeah, but in their conference, they always had the best talent in the conference. Clemson would sign out worse, maybe second some years, but maybe Florida State or Miami had the number one class in the ACC. But they were always getting the best conference in the talent, or in the best talent in the conference. If TCU can actually, obviously none of us saw them going 12-1 this year. So if they can actually start consistently getting the best talent in the Big 12, like who knows? TCU could be here to stay. They could. I mean, with what the new landscape of the Big 12 is going to be, they could kind of solidify themselves as the juggernaut in that conference.
For sure, because, I mean, Oklahoma State down there at 38th, I think. They didn't really have a great day. They've never been like a top 20 consistent recruiting spot for Stillwater. But Brockmeyer, I think TCU was another team who did sneaky good stuff in the portal with Tommy Brockmeyer, the offensive tackle from Alabama. He commits. He's a local Texas kid. He's back in the state. So they bring him in. And JoJo Earl, who I think is a good player. And we'll see how he does in this TCU scheme. But you go down their list, a lot of Texas kids. So Sonny Dykes did a good job maximizing the state of Texas, which obviously one of the best recruiting states in the country. I mean, a lot of talent. You go up and down the list, a lot of defense across the board here for this class. But Sonny Dykes, like you said, in the playoff, a lot of momentum. Texas and Oklahoma look like they're going to be leaving now sooner rather than later. My guess is this is it for them. Like this upcoming year is their
2023.
Yeah, I'm going to guess this is it, and they're in the SEC in 2024. Is going to be my bet on that front. And then TCU and Oklahoma, or TCU they're in a better position than anybody I think would have foreseen, because it was kind of like a meh hire to me at the time when they pulled Dykes, and he's been great. So we'll see what happens in the playoff, but they did fantastic work as well. I will say, obviously Alabama, Alabama did great. Miami did great. And we'll see if just enough players is going to be enough to get Miami over the hump. They have a great staff, which I think is under talked about with Mario Cristobal, where it's like Josh Gaddis is the OC. They got the Kevin Steele as DC, who's always had success wherever he's gone. And then, they took your DB coach this past year, right? The guy from West Virginia, what's his name? Who's a really good recruiter in that regard, who y'all had for a year. What is his name?
I'm blank. Jamel Adai.
Yes. So I still tend to think that they're going to be okay. Tennessee deserves kudos, finishing number 10. What was one of the things, Matt Green, about the Heupel hire? Do you remember one of the narratives at the time?
What was that?
It's like, oh, great offense. Can he recruit? Like, he's never recruited at this level. He was at UCF. He's never been at a Power 5. We'll see how he recruits. That's the main thing. If you want to compete, like, the offense and scheme can be fun in year one. Like, you caught a lot of people by surprise, but what happens when those Jeremy Pruitt players leave the building? Because Pruitt recruited. Like, Pruitt, he didn't show up on game day, but he was still recruiting at a high level. And you wonder, like, what happens if he can't hold up on that regard. Top 10 class, Nico, who's already in the building, really great. A bunch of defensive talent, David Hobbs, John Slaughter, Christian Conyer, Jeremiah Thielander, Arian Carter looks like he's going to start right away. But I love the defensive focus that Heupel put on this class. So it shows me that he is absolutely prioritizing the need for bodies on that side of the ball and to get better and more athletic there. And then Nathan Leacock, I think, is going to be a superstar at the wideout spot in this game. They take Deshaun Bishop, who has just put up bonkers numbers here in East Tennessee at Carnes at the last little bit. But they're loaded there. Cam Selden looks like he's the next Debo Samuel, Cordero Patterson mix, so he's going to be a really good player who I think sees the field early. But, I think Tennessee being in the top 10, my whole thing was like, can Heupel stay in the blue chip ratio? If he can do that, I'm good to go. And that's where they're at. They're not. I don't think they're ever going to recruit at the level Georgia and Bama are right now. Like, those two just are on a different playing sphere than everybody else, and that's just how it is. But by and large, you just want to be in the blue chip ratio is the main thing.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. This is obviously a good class, but is this a class that's going to change the trajectory of Tennessee's program? Like,
I think
if they're
defensively, yes.
because if you look at like just kind of consistently through the years of the rankings, it's like if you're consistently signing like the fourth, fifth, sixth best class in the SEC, like I don't know that that's actually going to, lead to better things. Like, I mean, this is kind of like, no disrespect here, but like this is kind of like one of the classes that Dan Mullen was like made fun of at Florida, like signing the 10th to 12th ranked class. Like, what is it, 277 overall? It's like Florida and A&M are pretty close to that, but like we talk about Oklahoma and Texas are just about to join the SEC. It's like they're both ahead of that. So if you want to include Oklahoma and Texas, now this is what the sixth ranked class in the SEC. It's like it's good. But like I wonder, like I feel like this is kind of a Mark Richt class. Like this is like what Mark Richt would consistently sign the and the good years were like the fifth or sixth ranked, but there's a lot of 10th, 11th ranked classes, and it'd be the fourth or fifth and the best in the SEC, and you'd end up being the fourth or fifth best team in the SEC pretty consistently. So I do wonder, because with such a good second year on the field and like such a sexy second year, like they were just such an exciting team. Like I'm not saying it's a disappointing class, but you almost want to like maybe you get a top 5 class this year, like an early bump, for your recruiting class. So I mean, you got the 5-star quarterback, like that's huge, obviously. But go ahead.
Well, I mean, I guess my thing is like, well, Oregon, you should probably beat Oregon, but Oregon, obviously, I mean, they have more success. I think Oregon doesn't really bother me. I think you want to be ahead of Notre Dame at this point, but they're by and large pretty close, 9-10. That's negligible. But you look up Ohio State, LSU, Miami when they have the money, and just people want. Miami has the USC thing, right, where kids. A lot of South Florida kids in this league, and a lot of kids want to play at Miami. Miami is a cool school in the South, great weather. They want a reason to go there. When they're up and they're doing what they're doing, Tennessee should not be expected to beat the Miamis, the Georgias, the Bamas of the world right now consistently. Like I've always said, what Tennessee should try and do football-wise is you just kind of want to be Auburn, where you maintain that 10 to 12, maybe you have a blip in that top 5 class every now and then you have that special.
I don't think anyone wants to be Auburn. I don't think Auburn fans want to be Auburn.
I mean, they've been in the national title twice in a little over a decade. I mean, that's kind of where you want to be. It's hard enough to do that, but I think
it's been almost a decade since that happened, though, right?
Yeah, but I mean, they've had some bad hires. Like that's been part of it. Is they've gone down and some. I think there's a lot of comparisons between how Auburn and Tennessee operate, actually. But I don't know. I think this class, you could have, I think there was momentum early. Like if Francis Maligoa, who was deep in the hunt for Tennessee, like here's the difference between this class being a top 5 and not. Carnell Tate, they got down to the final 2 with Ohio State, and then he goes Ohio State, probably the best receiver in this class. If you hit him, and then you hit on Francis Maligoa as well, then you're looking at the top 5 classes, what I'm guessing. But they got in the final 2 for those 2 schools, and they lost to Miami and Ohio State, and I'm just like, I don't know.
Well, and that's fair. If also this is such a subjective kind of I have to remind people of these numerical scores aren't real,
Mm-hmm.
So Tennessee having 277.3 and Oregon having 281.7, it's by this metric, it's pretty close to being the 7th ranked class in the country, and LSU there at 286. So it's not a huge gap for Tennessee to be there. I look at them, I look at it and I'm like, how much better is this than a Butch Jones class, than a Jeremy Pruitt class of kind of that borderline top 10 that you're still the 5th or 6th best in the SEC, and you don't. And Josh Heupel might just be such a superior coach to those others that he can be the 5th and 6th best talent in the SEC and still get a top 2 or 3 team in the SEC. I just don't know if you can win the SEC without getting at least those close to 300 composite ranked classes.
But with I mean, the SEC, I mean, with the 12-team playoff, that doesn't matter as much anymore. Like
That's fair. And the portal changes things too. I think you got to be active in the portal and kind of, shore up some weaknesses where you can. It's the composite talent ranking isn't everything, it is an inexact science, but
it does matter. Stars matter. They say it all the time. Stars do matter, and there's a reason that and this is goes back to Bama. They're going to be all right. They're going to this might be their best class of all time. People who are like, oh, I don't know about Bama. They're pretty shaky. It's I think Bama's fine. I think they're going to be okay. I think Bama's going to be fine.
And numerically, in the actual score, it's their best of all time?
I'm saying it was in the running. Did it end up being?
Okay, I think it's ahead of that 2017 class. Yeah. And so that was at 323. This one's at 326 right now. And that 2017 class, they legit hit on the top 12 players in the class. It's Najee Harris, Alex Weatherwood, Dylan Moses, Jerry Jeudy, LeBron Ray, Tua, Jedrick Wills, Xavier McKinney, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs. It's the top 10 dudes in the class were just all first and second round picks. Just absurd.
Some specific players, or let's do some losers. I don't think there were that many losers to me when I was looking at it. This is gonna sound disrespectful, and I don't mean it to be disrespectful, but the losers are the normal losers. Is that fair, Matt Green? You go back, you look through it, and I'm like,
what do you mean?
Oklahoma State, that's about where they belong. Georgia Tech, that's about where they belong. Wisconsin.
Everyone gets a trophy for this guy, Chase Thomas over here. We
What?
need losers. You can't have winners without losers, sir.
That's true.
No, I know what you mean, and I feel like the losers are the ones that think they know what happened on signing day. They give draft grades the night of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I would think just the losers is just from a vibe, right? Notre Dame was yeah, it's just a bummer. On signing day that we lost 2 or 3 of our best commits. So yeah, that sucks. But it's you never really know what's gonna happen, who's gonna be the big winners and big losers. But yeah, Notre Dame
Keely not in the at Notre Dame was a brutal blow, and they lose. Who they lose the DB to? They lost somebody else, didn't they?
Oregon is the safety.
Yes,
flipped to Oregon. Yeah.
But that's how it goes. Wisconsin at 61, not great out of the gate here for Luke Fickell. I think Clemson's a sneaky loser at 13. I don't know. I didn't really love this class for them up and down. I know NIL and that incredible Dabo quote was great, but I thought they were kind of a little bit shaky. I think we're in that point now where is Clemson just never gonna? What were they last year? Before I say this, they were not in the top 5 last year, right?
I wouldn't think so.
Let's see. They were
10.
14th last year. I'm looking at.
What are you looking at?
247.
What am I looking at? Am I not looking at the composite? I thought I'm looking at the 247.
I'm looking at it right now. It says 2020. Oh, wait. This is 2022. They just why did it just do that?
2022 is last year.
Yeah. Then I was right. Yeah. 14.
I don't know how we're looking at different things right now.
I have no idea.
10, but whatever. Remember, all my data's off. Everything I said is wrong now.
Before that, they were 5th. So we now have 2 years in a row in the portal era, in the post-Trevor Lawrence era of Clemson football. I don't know. You know who it helps? Tennessee. This helps Tennessee that Clemson's fallen off a little bit because those are the kind of battles that Tennessee was losing when Clemson was dominating. They recruit the same kind of players and same areas.
I mean, literally, Trevor Lawrence grew up a Tennessee fan. But in last year, that 5th ranked class only had 19 commits in it too. They've had these smaller classes with elite players, and this was a 26 commit class that was ranked 11th. That's a huge drop off of just the caliber of just the average commit they're getting.
Is Mizzou ever going to do anything? Are they just going to hang out in the 30s forever? Matt Green, is that what's happening here?
What's Mizzou supposed to do other than hang out in the 30s? I feel like if they're in the 30s or the 20s, I don't know. I don't know how much better they can really do than that. As far as the SEC goes, Mississippi State up there at 24, they could be ahead of a Mississippi State,
Ooh.
But
Ole Miss
Arkansas seems
like
Arkansas is a more attractive spot than Missouri right now.
why is Ole Miss at 36? Like, recruits, why are you not going to Kiffin? What are we doing? Like, what more do you need to see? Like, Quinshon Jenkins, great right away. Matt Corral put in the league. A.J. Brown. You go up and down the list. I mean, they're one of the more stable.
A.J. Brown wasn't a Kiffin guy, though, right? He's before Kiffin, right?
I guess he was.
I think, at least, off the top of my head. But
yeah,
that's a kind of a underrated storyline for Lane Kiffin, that he's this like young, cool coach.
Yeah.
Which you would kind of automatically assume that's a guy who recruits really well, but he
But like Marcel Reed decommitting from Ole Miss to go to Jimbo, what are you doing? Like, that's one of those too where I'm like,
I guess you're just ready to hit the portal hard. Like, I think that's really what they're gonna do. And maybe there's some college football playoff teams that have some players that aren't playing as much as they'd like, or that are gonna end up at Ole Miss. Like, who knows? But like, to only have 12 guys in the class on signing day, like, that's got to be like, they have 3 committed out of the portal right now. But I don't know. I mean, that's got to be the route they're going, I'd imagine.
He does call himself the portal king.
Yeah, transfer to the SIP and all that. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's a sustainable model. But like Zach Evans, like, you would have thought he's going to be first team All SEC with the preseason hype he got, and their running game was still great because of how good Judkins was as a true freshman. But it's not a sustainable model. Like, a lot of the huge quote unquote transfers we've gotten in the past couple years in the SEC have been a little underwhelming in terms of like what their impact was supposed to be and what it ended up being, from Jermaine Burton to Eli Ricks to To'o to even Jamie Newman or someone like that. Like, even JT Daniels was pretty disappointing at the end of the day in his Georgia career. So I don't know. The portal is just sometimes there's a reason these guys are in the portal and they couldn't play at their previous stop. So it's a bold strategy, Cotton.
Absolutely. But we'll see what happens. Commit to Lane Kiffin. That's what I would say. Like, I would trust Lane at this point. It's a good kid. And it seems like it's a fun vibe over there in the SIP. Definitely better than College Station. Like, if your choices are being a quarterback for Kiffin in 2023 or Jimbo Fisher, I might just stay with Kiffin on that one. I might.
I'll be honest. If I was a recruit, maybe this is an exercise we should do. What are your top priorities if you're a recruit? Because I kind of think the stadium, like the campus vibe, is definitely like one you want, obviously, but like the stadium would be such a appealing factor to me. Like, an A&M stadium is just an absolute like cathedral. Like Tennessee's stadium would be the hardest sales pitch I could get from Tennessee.
I saw Georgia was ahead of Tennessee in like loudest. I think SEC Mike did a poll or did like the toughest places to play, and Georgia was number 2. And I was like, oh, so we're just like, because they
without a doubt, man. Boy, they lost like one home game in the last like 6 years or so, I think.
Do you think that might have to do more with the talent and the coaching?
Hey, makes it a tough place to play, without a doubt. But you saw that Tennessee game this year.
That's what I'm saying. But that was like
that
one of those.
That place was rowdy.
Kirby had to ask them to get rowdy.
Oh, no, sir.
Do you think
that's
you don't
not
think
even
there was a call?
Kirby called for it Arkansas at noon when they got this college game day game, inexplicably a noon kickoff. He called the fans out there, and you know what? You know what they did? They showed up. They were there, packed out, noon kickoff, forcing however many false starts on Arkansas in that game as well. Georgia's a loud place to play now. We've actually entered that realm, and I'm sure a huge part of it is that the team is just way better now. But it's such a louder stadium than it used to be. I remember at least as recent as 2012, that was the year I saw a game in the Swamp, and I left the Swamp like envious of how much louder that game was than any game I'd ever been to in Athens. But now the vibe is different. That place, Kirby changed everything about Georgia. Just there's a different energy inside Sanford Stadium than there used to be. Like Eric Ainge, like he wasn't wrong to say that Georgia wasn't a tough place to play, because when he played at Georgia, when he played at Tennessee, it wasn't the same place. Now, then he just had to wrote a check that Tennessee team had to cash. Like, what are you doing, bro? If you at least be on the team, if you're going to say something about Georgia Stadium, like the whole Tennessee team had to back it up.
Yeah. But that is neither here nor there. You have to come to.
You don't want to talk about Georgia Tennessee more? I was enjoying that.
Is it too early for me to just go ahead and say that Tennessee's beating Georgia next year in Knoxville? Can I go ahead? A little early?
No, it's not too early for you to say that at all, sir.
Do you know what Tennessee's not doing next year? Is they're not beating Alabama and Tuscaloosa. I'll go ahead and say that one too.
I think they're going to have a better shot to beat Alabama than they will Georgia next year.
I disagree. Carson Beck coming to town. Do you know who's shaking?
Who's going to be that quarterback at Alabama next year?
I mean, might be Ty Simpson.
All I know is this was the quote-unquote most talented team they've ever had, and about 6 of their games were decided by one possession. Like, without Bryce Young and Will Anderson, like, I do not see Alabama being better next year. Like, that's a whole other conversation, but I don't know.
I'm just ready for the Carson Beck era. I'm ready for it. Matt Green, speaking of quarterbacks, we had some quarterback movement in the SEC. I'm ready on this take. Are you ready for this, Matt Green?
Yeah.
Florida is in a bad way. If I'm a Florida fan, I'm jumping ship right now. I'm like, this is going down Muschamp Central over here where we are not moving in the right direction. How do you land on Graham Mertz as your transfer quarterback? You follow up the Anthony Richardson special with Graham Mertz in year 2, where I think the Gators, who have now lost more games than they've won in back-to-back seasons, you're going to trust year 2? Graham Mertz versus Jack Miller? I was dumbfounded at this.
We got Jalen Rashada in there as well.
Not playing right away, though. That man is not playing as a true freshman right now.
Says who?
I don't think he's...
I wonder if the Graham Mertz transfer says that, honestly. That you're landing a 5-star quarterback, like maybe Jack Miller, the way he played against Oregon State, you're like, we got to get somebody in here to compete with this freshman because he's not it. That could be, but don't want to necessarily jump to conclusion after a guy plays one game. But should you be worried that they felt the need to get a quarterback out of the portal? Or is that just a guarantee that they were going to need to get one? I mean, they talked about Grayson.
Like that was
to be hinted like up. Grayson McCall one day.
Yeah, how do you not go Grayson McCall, Spencer Sanders? Like, there were better options. Devin Leary. And we'll get into Leary in a second. Graham Mertz is bad. Like, he is an objectively bad quarterback. And I just think there is so much going into the year 2 for Billy Napier that you cannot roll the dice and wait on, like, hope that you can wait on Rashada for the following year. But I don't think you can throw the true freshman in there middle of the year if you're like 2-3 and you're like, hey, go save our season, true freshman, like 6'4", 185. Like, those stories don't end well. And I don't know. I'm selling. If I never had any Gator stock, but I am very much in the Florida's in some trouble here. There are some troubling signs. And Graham Mertz, Jack Miller, a spring quarterback battle. When you got Nico in this conference, you got Brock Vandegrift, Gunnar Stockton, you got Bama with Ty Simpson, you got just quarterbacks everywhere. And let me just say, Matt Green, Devin Leary to Kentucky, I'm going to say it, Matt Green. They're finishing second in the SEC East next year. Tennessee's falling back a little bit because Tennessee's going to have... Tennessee's more of an 8-4.
Did you just pick them to beat Georgia like 2 seconds ago?
Dude, yeah.
And now you're picking Kentucky to finish ahead of Tennessee?
Yes. You can still get a big win. They got to go to Kentucky. They got to go to Bama. Like, we'll get into Tennessee preview. Don't worry. We'll get there at some point. But I'm just saying, to wrap it up on Florida, I don't like this. I saw this and I was like, this just gives me goosebumps. Where I'm like, if I'm a Florida fan, I'm nervous about what next year holds because I don't think they can go 7-5 next year. I think Napier to keep the hot seat off because remember, Florida State's now the best team in the ACC. There's a case that they were the best team in the ACC as of today. The way they finished the year, they're the best. Miami's recruiting at a top 3 level now. We'll see what they look like next year. I think they're going to be much better. Suddenly, Florida is like, uh-oh. Like, we're now number 3 in the state of Florida, and that might be a distant number 3. You
Maybe,
just lost to Florida State this past year. I don't know. I don't think you lose to Florida State back-to-back years.
Miami was real bad this year, though.
I don't think they're going to be that bad next year. I don't. But if I'm a Florida fan, I'm nervous about where we're going.
Yeah. I think it's funny. Like, when was the last time someone said, that Wisconsin, that quarterback play up there, Wisconsin, let's go get that guy on our team. Probably not since Russell Wilson's been there. It's been a solid decade, and Wisconsin's just seen bad quarterback play after bad quarterback play. And for Florida to get their potential starter for next year from Wisconsin, that's not a great look.
No. But what is a great look, Devin Leary winds up at UK. You and I are both big Devin Leary guys. Matt Green. I was surprised that this ultimately was the call. I know they were flirting with Graham Mertz too. Kentucky's a better identifier of quarterback talent apparently by going Leary over Graham Mertz here. But Leary lands in a pro-style offense.
But was he even considering Florida?
Which one?
Devin Leary.
He visited.
I wonder if this is like Kentucky is legitimately a better situation than Florida right now.
It is.
They might be more, at least closer to being a quarterback away than Florida is.
I think they are. I think this is a good situation. I think Devin Leary is a really good player. I think Liam Cohen coming back in at OC is a huge win for the Kentucky Wildcats based on what we saw 2 years ago versus Rich Gangarello this past year. You get, obviously, Tennessee at home next year for Kentucky, which will be big for them. But I don't know. I think this Kentucky team is going to be really good. Barry Brown is obviously a star in waiting. I think he's a really good player. The defense still top-notch for Mark Stoops. And I think Devin Leary, here's a take. I think he'll be better than what we saw from Will Levis. I think he has shown more at the college level that he's a better quarterback than Will Levis. I think Kentucky is going to be a 9-10 win team next year. So I think this is a huge home run offseason, getting Liam Cohen back in the fold, and then pretty solid recruiting class. Defense is still going to be great next year. And Devin Leary, I think, is going to be a really, really good player for them. So I think that's a huge, huge under-the-radar pickup. That's one of my favorite quarterback pickup in the portal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a move that's way bigger than what I thought probably Kentucky was capable of, honestly. Like, I don't understand the Devin Leary comparison or hype. We've talked about that, plenty of times. But they never had a legitimate downfield passing threat while he was the quarterback. So I don't understand how that guy could be a first rounder. But if you add Kentucky, if they get back to what they basically have always been under Mark Stoops, which is, just physical up front and running the football, and you add this Devin Leary, just a legitimate quarterback that can, take the top off of defenses, you're definitely right. Kentucky, I think, does become a more dangerous team. It's surprising to hear you say that they're more dangerous than Tennessee next year, but I think that could be the case.
Well, part of it too, I think Tennessee, they lost a lot of NFL talent. Jalen Hyatt will be out the building. Cedric Tillman will be out the building. Donnell Wright at right tackle will be out the building in the draft. And then I think you're going to have a quarterback change. I don't think you're going to... Losing Hendon Hooker is going to be a big loss because I'm not a Joe Milton believer at this point. And then I think you're going to get Nico in there at some point early in the season, and then it's just a true freshman. So I think it's a 7-8 win team. I don't think the...
do you know, putting you on the spot, what Tennessee's schedule next year, who they play out of conference?
Virginia and Nashville to open. That's their big non-conference game.
So it still could be a case of having, a few games to get right.
Oh, they also get UTSA, which is not great. You don't want this great UTSA team coming in there. So that's a tough one. Austin Peay, obviously. You got to go to Florida next year. You get South Carolina at home that they'll win by 40, maybe even 50. What that will be in Knoxville, Tennessee next year is going to be... It's going to be fun. Texas A&M coming here.
Yeah, early in the year there, too.
They go to Bama and Kentucky back-to-back, Matt Green.
And then Georgia, second to last game of the season? That's a bizarre schedule. I have not seen that.
And
Georgia, Tennessee,
UConn.
and the SEC
UConn went
finale.
bowling this year. This is a sneaky, annoying... this just looks like a 7-5, 8-4 schedule to me.
UConn. I hate the November out of conference games they have there.
Yeah. But either way, I think
Grinds
Kentucky's
my
in good
gears,
shape.
sir.
I think Kentucky's in good shape to be the second best team in the East next year. Maybe the biggest stunner, it hasn't been official yet, Matt Green, but it looks like it's happening, is DJU to Hawaii. And this is what I was saying earlier, where it's like, do you remember how we talked about this, where it's like sometimes I think what we're learning with the portal is people are like, oh, DJU, it's like UCLA, it's like blah, blah, blah. It's like, you know who UCLA took? The Kent State kid who had good tape and was like putting up really good stats and a fun offense. Teams wanted the Western Kentucky kid who pulled his name out of the portal, and they won big today against South Alabama, Austin Reed. What you're not seeing is the ones where it's like, it's bad. And you're watching it and you're like, DJ was objectively just not good this year. And you're like, are we sure he's a Power 5 quarterback anymore? And when you see this, like Bama had a couple of those. Remember, what was the kid name who went to USF and bounced around and was at Arizona State too?
Is that Blake Barnett?
Yeah. And you see that where it's like, at some point you have to remove the 5-star from it. And you're like, he's just not, it's not going to happen. If you remove 5-star from DJ's name this past year, you're like, oh, this, you would never have been okay with him starting for the full year based on what you saw. But because he was a 5-star and the size and all that kind of stuff, you're like, he'll figure it out. He'll figure it out. He never did. And then Cade Klubnik will be starting against Tennessee this Orange Bowl. But let me say, Timmy Chang, who is now the head coach at Hawaii, and you know I'm a big Hawaii guy, Matt Green, Colt Brennan being one of my favorite all-time quarterbacks. I love this. I've been hard on DJ all year. Go where no game matters. Like the results don't matter. The winning doesn't matter. You get to go experience the fun, just vibe of playing Hawaii Rainbow Warrior football. Play under a legend in that conference who knows exactly what he's doing and putting up good stats. Put up a bajillion yards for Hawaii in this group and live your best life. Like get out of the Power 5 chase, the title chase, and just enjoy your college experience because you can get drafted from Hawaii. We've seen it multiple times. Like Colt Brennan got drafted, Timmy Chang got drafted. Like you can have an NFL career. I just don't think he's a Power 5 guy. I don't think he's an NFL starting quarterback. And what I do think, he might be a backup somewhere. Some teams will be enamored by his size and arm strength and all that. But man, I love this. Hawaii for DJU, I'm here for. And I think a lot more Power 5 guys need to be okay with this, where it's like, you know, I could bounce around and go from like Tennessee to Kentucky or whatever. Wouldn't it be more fun to just dip out of the Power 5 rat race and just go put up bonkers numbers at a smaller school? Wouldn't that be more fun?
I mean, DJ Uiagalelei is the perfect name for the Hawaii quarterback, obviously. Yeah. I think he'll fit right in. But see, I don't think he's that bad. I don't feel like
do you think he's going to Hawaii?
I think he can start in the Power 5. Like, I don't think he's just, I mean, this guy, what was he, like 22 touchdowns, like 9 picks or something this year? Like, I might be a little off on those numbers, but it was like, he had a decent season. Like, Clemson was like a good team. Like, they weren't just terrible. I think it's like, if he was playing for like a mid-tier ACC team, he'd fit in better. But I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a middle ground between Clemson and Hawaii. And I feel like an Arizona State or something, you know, I don't know, like somewhere in the Pac-12, maybe go back West Coast, but obviously there's some really good Pac-12 quarterback play in the Pac-12 currently, like half the conference. But I don't know. I don't necessarily, as cool as it is to see him at Hawaii, like I feel like it just fits, but I feel like I don't feel like he should take that big of a drop down. I think he could play in the Power 5 personally. I don't know if he can play in the NFL ever. Like living in Hawaii, obviously that'd be cool, but I think you're still trying to get to the NFL if you're him.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't think. I don't know. I didn't see it, man. He was 61st in yards. He was 54th in quarterback rating. He completed 59% of his passes in November, 5 TDs, 3 picks, and then he eventually gets benched. I just didn't see it. It was just one of those talents there, but I don't think it's put it all together.
If I would agree with you if he did what he did in 2021 again, I'd just be like, he can't play. But like that's how he looked after 2021. But this year is like, I mean, he showed some he could do some things. Like, he actually ran a little bit, like used some of his size. Like, so I don't know. I think what you're saying might be the best route, to just go put up huge numbers and people kind of forget that you got dominated or you played pretty poorly when you were playing against Power 5 competition. The Joe Flacco route maybe, and then, that could work for you.
Ben Roethlisberger at Miami of Ohio. You go back through. I mean, you don't have to play.
But he didn't transfer. He didn't transfer out though.
No, what I'm saying though is
I'm saying Flacco was like a Pittsburgh, went the smaller school route and then got drafted. You know what I mean?
No, what I'm saying is like Trey Lance played like 1 year of tape at North Dakota State and went in the top 5. Like DJ hurt his value by playing football at Clemson. Like he actually was a better NFL prospect before he got to Clemson than after. He actively hurt it. True. Every snap he played at Clemson only hurt his draft stock. If he plays a full year at North Dakota State only, the man's going number 1 overall.
If he never starts a game after the 2020 season, after he had those like couple games in for Trevor Lawrence, he probably could have still been a first-round pick.
I think he goes number 1 overall.
Cardale Jones style.
Yes.
I always said Cardale Jones should have gone to the league. Like, after they won the championship, like his stock was never going to be higher.
No. But yeah, Cade Klubnik's now the guy. I'm excited for it. Makes Hawaii games must-see television. I'm excited to see. They already were for me. I love those 11:30 p.m. Eastern time kicks for my Rainbow Warriors. So shout out to Timmy Chang. Big get. If that's what happens, he's 100% on Crystal Ball for 247. He has not signed yet, but we'll see. Matt Green. I was thinking about this week. In the SEC. And I was thinking, like, I'm hard on Shane Beamer and the cringe there and poking fun at journalists for, like, oh, you don't like my OC hire? Did you reach out to Coach A, Coach B, Coach C? They'll tell you everyone wanted him. Like, all right, man. Like, it just, okay. Social media superstar, Shane Beamer. That being said, I look around the league. They still beat Clemson and Tennessee down the stretch. They deserve credit there. I like so many of these coaches as like, hey, this program is in pretty good shape. And then I'm thinking about it, I'm like, who's like Vanderbilt was a game away from missing a bowl game making a bowl game this year. And I'm like, Matt Green, I want to get your perspective on this. Do you think is going to have the season from hell next year? Who do you think of the Sam Pittmans, the Billy Napiers, the Eli Drinkwitz, the Jimbo Fishers, the Brian Kellys even, or the Lane Kiffins? Like, who could actually go the opposite way? Who is the bubble going to burst first, where they like go 5-7? Like, I think Jimbo. Are we sure he bounces back? People are like, well, maybe. I'm like, what if it gets worse? What if they're 3-9 next year? What if this was a beginning of the end for this thing? Like, I could see them being worse than 5-7. People are assuming they bounce back. I don't know. I just feel like someone's gonna burst, and I just like objectively every coach outside of probably Jimbo in this conference as like the right guy for their school. But I don't know. Do you feel the same, and who do you think it is?
I think that's a tough question, especially if you look in the SEC West. Like, obviously, I think you can. Is Jaden Daniels going pro? Has he announced that?
He's
yet?
back.
He's back. Because you look at the top, I think Alabama and LSU. You can count on them. After that, in the West, like I feel like Arkansas should still. They don't feel like a cellar dweller by any means with KJ Jefferson coming back. Like, they've recruited fairly well and been active in the portal. Like, Auburn feels like they're trending in the right direction. A&M just, like, obviously they're going to lose a lot from this past class, but they still have a lot of really good players on that team. And they don't seem like they can miss a bowl game. Like, it didn't seem possible for it to happen this year, but, like, I definitely wouldn't pick it again to happen next year. Like, Ole Miss, like, I've obviously was super critical of Ole Miss all year. Like, they seemed fraudulent all year. But, do they seem like a team that's going to miss a bowl game? Like, probably not. Like, I think Mississippi State, if I'm picking one team from the West, with, like, Mike Leach being so much of the identity of what their program was, it's hard to see them, finishing in the top half of the West again. But,
But they never finished last.
They rarely do. You're right. So in the West, it's really hard to pick anyone. I think if you're in the East, Missouri is probably the one that doesn't really seem to have much momentum at the current state. Like Florida is obviously like just has a way higher ceiling. Like I don't see Florida missing a bowl game. Like I don't see it necessarily being that bad, even though we're kind of questioning Graham Mertz, like as inconsistent as Anthony Richardson was, he still like made a lot of plays for Florida, and a lot of plays that Graham Mertz is definitely not going to make. Like their running game was their entire identity, and Anthony Richardson was half of that. So I don't know. Vanderbilt feels like they're trending in the wrong direction, or they're in the right direction for sure. But like when we're picking our preseason win totals for next year, how many games are we going to pick them to win? You go game by game. You can't project Vanderbilt to win more than 2 games in the conference. You just like, where are they going to get them? Like, so I don't know. The Vanderbilt's the easy one, but you're right. I think South Carolina, is the one that's the most disappointing to me. Like just from a parity standpoint, like I feel bad for South Carolina fans right now. Like you're ranked 19th in year 2 of Shane Beamer's tenure, and you have like nothing to show for. You just beat 2 top 10 teams and to close the season out. And Jaheim Bell, I would say Jaheim Bell is probably the best player on the team, is transferring. Marshawn Lloyd transferring. I'm pretty sure Spencer Rattler has said he's transferring too, but that he's just playing in the bowl game or maybe that he's going pro. He said he's playing in the bowl game. I think
he'd be back if he doesn't go pro.
Okay, because he said he's playing in the bowl game just to because of everything Shane Beamer has done for him. He wants to appreciate him or whatever. So I think that means, like you said, instead of going to the draft. So you're also going to lose Rattler after he played 2 good games for you. And there's just nothing real tangible to point to say yeah, we're definitely going to be better again next year. We could win 9 games next year. So South Carolina and Missouri, I guess, are probably my 2 biggest candidates. Because, you look at last year, 13 of the 14 teams in the SEC did go bowling. So there doesn't necessarily have to be a cellar dweller. But South Carolina and Missouri feel like they're going to be the most likely, other than the obvious Vanderbilt, I think, to potentially miss a bowl game.
See, I think South Carolina probably sneaks in again at 6-6, 7-5, something like that. I think Florida misses. Actually, I do not. I'm selling the Florida stock. I think Florida is near the bottom of the East. I like the Mizzou one. I think Mizzou's trending the wrong way. We'll see if Sam Horn's starting. They were able to keep what was his name? The Luther Burden, and keep him out of the fourth, but they lost their actual most productive and Lovett, and I don't think he's committed to his next school yet. So we'll see. I think Mizzou is definitely a good candidate to be a dumpster fire next year. Miss a bowl.
Florida's a fair point just because their schedule next year.
Yeah.
Just the SEC schedule plus Florida State and Utah at Utah. Was it at Florida State this year?
It was at Florida State this year.
So that'll be a home game. But Florida State and Utah at a conference, that's tougher than...
That's 2 top 10 teams.
Just off the top of my head, that's tougher than any other team in the SEC at a conference.
I don't think they're going to a bowl game. I think people need to be ready. I don't think the Napier stuff's going to work. Is where I'm at. I don't think this is going to happen for them. And I will say in the West, I think people just need to accept that A&M's not happening. The A&M not just biting the bullet and just firing Jimbo and being all right, the UTSA coach Taylor being what is it going to cost to bring you, to bring your style and run the Texas A&M program? What is it going to take? That should have been done deal. That should have already happened. But they're just going to run it back. I don't think they have an OC yet, but when you see that Jimbo's interviewing Bobby Petrino for his next OC, you're oh, this is over. The A&M stuff is over. I think they miss a bowl game again. I think they're worse. I think they're a 3-9, 4-8 team next year.
At this point, I really can't put anything past them because I would never have thought this team would have gone 5-7 this year. So who's the quarterback next year?
Connor Weigman still, I think.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what can happen with A&M. The last thing I'll say about Florida, I love, one of my pet peeves. I love to talk about the calendar of college football, but I guess this is also along the lines of the calendar. The SEC schedule of getting rid of those November cupcakes is just incredible. Like we talked about Georgia's schedule this past year. What they played Florida and Tennessee back to back for the first time ever. But like in November, it was who was it? Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech. Like it's just a way better way to finish the season. Florida next year, starting October 28th with Georgia. Last 5 games in the season: Georgia, Arkansas, at LSU, at Missouri, Florida State. Like that's a gauntlet for the last 5 weeks of the season. Like Florida could honestly go 1-4 or so in those final 5 games.
All right, Matt Green. So how do we do in our bowl pick'em?
Bowl pick'em. Let me pull that up, sir. So this was a mixed bag, I would say, for these matchups right here. Marshall, we both got that one. You missed. We both missed San Jose State. I did say Eastern Michigan would cover. They won that one outright. I got Toledo. You got Liberty, but I missed the points on Toledo. You got the points on Liberty, so kind of evened out. South Alabama, that one was played earlier tonight, and or last night if you're listening to this on Thursday. And Western Kentucky won that one. So we are now deadlocked, sir.
Woo!
8-5 overall, 7-6 against the spread. So right now, me and you deadlocked through our first 2 sessions of bowl season.
I like it. Matt Green, where are we going first this weekend? Pod number 3 during bowl season, sir.
We are going on December 22nd, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth, Texas.
Oh, you know what that means.
Baylor Bears, Air Force Falcons. Baylor is a 3.5-point dog in this one, or a 3.5-point favorite, I should say, in this one. You know, question the home cooking here, because I know it's in Texas, Baylor's in Texas, but it's the Armed Forces Bowl. You know, is Air Force going to get some questionable calls going their way? You know, you gotta worry about those kind of things happening. There's some shady things going on. But you look at Baylor. They lost. Let me pull up my handy dandies. Almost knocked over the helmet there. Pulling up my stats for going against here.
The troops.
Baylor, 5 of their 6 losses this year are by 6.4 points per game. They played a lot of close games this year. I think they're a quality team. Give me the Baylor Bears to win the Armed Forces Bowl. Also, Waco to Fort Worth, much shorter trip. You know, I like the geography.
Do you?
Big geography guy on bowl games.
Baylor is 46th in rush defense in the country this year, Matt Green. Do you know what Air Force likes to do? My guy Troy Calhoun and his group likes to do? They like to run the football. They love to run that football, and they have had success in bowl games. You know what part of it, I think, is? No one's transferring or sitting out bowl games for the service academies. There's no opt-outs for the service academies. I think that's a positive.
Great point.
I think it's big. Baylor can be favored all they want. Not so fast, my friend. Air Force Falcons. Shout out to youtube.com/Chase Thomas Podcast to see the real deal that the Air Force Falcons sent me the helmet for this very occasion. I'm excited for the future when I just have every single helmet. So during our fall pick'ems, I can just pull them out one at a time to show you which way I'm going. But shout out to the Falcons. I think they're going to win this. Baylor fired their defensive coordinator this offseason, so Dave Aranda will be calling the plays in this one. Blake Shipen, you know how I feel about him. Shipen, doesn't matter. He stinks, Matt Green, and it's not going to work. So give me the Air Force Falcons to win in an upset in the Armed Forces Bowl. Go Falcons.
All right. Disagreement already. Let's go to this December 23rd for the Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. In my day, never mind. Confusing that. Disregard that anecdote. I was thinking of the Liberty Bowl. The Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl. This one's in Shreveport. We got the Raging Cajuns, Louisiana, taking on Houston. Houston is a 7-point favorite in this game. How do you see this one going?
You got to go first, Matt Green. You got to lead this so you don't accuse me of cheating here.
Oh, fair enough. I was just going to go back and forth. But I look at Houston, allowing 33.5 points per game this year. 118th in college football. It's given up a lot of points. And then my other aspect of this pick, Shreveport, Louisiana. Raging Cajuns got the home field advantage for sure in Shreveport. Give me the Raging Cajuns to win this one outright.
We disagree again, Matt Green. Can't do it. I don't care where this game's played. They're on their backup quarterback. That is the Raging Cajuns. Their starting quarterback goes down for the year. They're already replacing a great quarterback in Levi Lewis. The offense was definitely not the same this year. They had to just murder Texas State to get bowl eligibility. I'm not there. I will say Houston's defense not being one of the best defenses in the country this year was kind of a surprise with Delk and what he was able to do a year ago. But I think Houston, who I had, if people forget, I was like, this schedule looks like 12-0 to me, and they're going to be that 12-0 Group of 5 team this year. Nailed that one.
Never forget.
Nailed that one. I don't think this Louisiana team's good, and they're having the season from hell with their new coach and backup quarterback Chandler Fields in there. So, no, I'm going to stick to Old Faithful and back my Dana Holgorsen Houston Cougars here to win and cover.
Put it on the board. Our only Power 5 matchup of the slate, also on the 23rd, our Union Home Mortgage Gasparilla Bowl here in Tampa. And Wake Forest and Missouri are facing in this one. And the Demon Deacons are a 2-point favorite in this one. How do you see this one going?
I'm surprised it's only 2, aren't you?
A little bit.
Sam Hartman is playing, correct? Is that part of it? Is he playing?
I believe so.
I'm pulling this up right now. I want to see if he's playing.
I'm surprised you, of all people, doesn't know that already.
Well, hold on. It wouldn't be me. It'd be one of our wives who would know the answer to that one because they're the two big fans of Mr. Sam Hartman. You know that. Their offense stinks. Like Brady Cook was, every broadcast I'm excited for this one is like, he's got a little Bo Nix in him. Like that's something that everyone brings up because he runs every now and then. It's like, he's got a little bit of Bo Nix in him, like a poor man's Bo Nix. Mr. Brady Cook up there and Mizzou. They lost to Army, correct, in the bowl game last year? Did they win that one or did they lose that one late? I remember it came down to like the last play.
The bowl game? I thought that was just a regular season game. That Army, that wild, that was like 63-56 or something.
No, that was Wake Army. I'm saying Mizzou Army in the bowl game.
Oh, I can't remember.
I think they lost. I can't remember off the top of my head. But either way, I think Mizzou, they ended the season strong. With Arkansas. That was a fun back and forth, kind of a forgotten one, but I enjoyed that game a great deal and turned into a fun rivalry between the two of them. But no, give me Wake. Wake's still a top 15 offense in the country this year. Not quite the extent of what they were doing a year ago, but they're still averaging 36.8 points a game. That's more than enough to outscore this Mizzou Tigers team. So give me Wake to win and cover.
And you were correct, sir. Army won on a walk-off field goal. No time left against Missouri. And last year's Armed Forces Bowl, probably got some home cooking in that one as well. But, that's just me. Not so fast, my friend. Wake Forest has lost 4 of their last 5 games. I think they're trending in the wrong direction. So, for that reason, give me the Missouri Tigers to win outright.
Win outright?
Yeah.
Matt Green.
Put it on the board. Middle Tennessee State Blue Raiders in the Hawaii Bowl against, or I should say, the Easy Post Hawaii Bowl against the San Diego State Aztecs. And San Diego State, what do you know about the Aztecs this year?
They always have a top 25 defense, so I'm going to guess they still have a top 25 defense.
And that honestly might be true. However, this offense is not in the top 25. It is very far from the top 25. You might say they're in the bottom 25. They're actually in the bottom like 14. They're 118th in the country in total offense, averaging 21 points a game. This offense is just bad. And I think Middle Tennessee State, they got more firepower. Give me the Blue Raiders. Go to Honolulu. Get the dub.
Wow. You're just like coming off that just Blue Raider feeling where you were like, I'm all in on the Miami win. They blow out Miami, which is going to be forgotten to the history books. But Middle Tennessee State went into Miami and just crushed the Canes this year in one of the more absurd games.
Got a long history with MTSU. We go way back. North Gwinnett High School. Been going there for years. So I got a soft spot in my heart for the Blue Raiders.
There you go. Chase Cunningham, their quarterback. I love a good team with a quarterback named Chase. He's completed 67% of his passes this year. He's had a really good year. 19 TDs, 9 picks. I think they struggle, though. I think SDSU, their defense comes to play here. Braxton Burmeister might be under center here, who shares with Jalen Maiden. Braxton Burmeister, obviously, the one who did things at Virginia Tech with Hendon Hooker years ago. But I'm going to trust Brady Hoke and the SDSU future Pac-12 Aztecs to get it done here. No, give me the Aztecs.
Give you the Aztecs. And our last one, the Quick Lane Bowl. I think this used to be one of your favorites, right? It used to have a different name. This one was the one in Detroit.
Yeah.
What was the old
Motor
name?
City Bowl.
Yeah, I think that is what it used to be. So now it's just the Quick Lane Bowl. We still got a automotive sponsor here, but
it doesn't hit the same, Matt Green.
It does not. And we got New Mexico State and Bowling Green in this one. The Bowling Green Falcons, sir. What do you know about the Bowling Green Falcons?
They have one of the worst offenses. I think they are coached by Mr. Scott Loeffler, who came into Knoxville for the opener last year on Thursday night at Tennessee. Got absolutely obliterated. I think he's friends with Tom Brady, last I checked. But
was that your wedding night? Is that who they played?
No, they played Akron on my wedding night. I'm talking about last year. I'm saying like the first game of the year on that Thursday night they do now was Bowling Green. Joe Milton was airmailing like ball after ball, and we're like, oh no. Didn't it? Yeah, it was like 4 or 5 of those.
Well, not only do they have a bad offense, they have a bad defense as well. It's
a great combination, Cotton.
They are 110th in the country in point differential, negative 10.1 points per game. The only team that made a bowl game that was worse was the Rice Owls, and they didn't even have a winning record. So basically the second worst team in the country to be playing a bowl game this year is the Bowling Green Falcons. So for that reason, give me New Mexico State to win this one.
I am also going to New Mexico State. Bowling Green had a weird win at Toledo at some point this year, the MAC champs. So that is something that they can stick in their belt. They started out 1-3, came back, made a bowl game. Did you know how New Mexico State made this bowl game, Matt Green?
I do not.
So there was the tragedy, obviously, at San Jose State. So that game did not happen. So they played Valparaiso instead and won 65-3. So they ended up getting that 6th win because they would have lost San Jose State most likely. San Jose State's a good team. Went bowling as well. So they make it in with that. Is the mic betrays you at the very end of this pod, Matt Green.
Just knocking over.
But I don't know. I think this is not often. I was looking at it, I'm like, I feel like New Mexico State has been one of the worst FBS programs in our lifetime, right? Like we just
like every year.
And they've only been in 5 bowl games total, which I thought was more than I would have guessed before looking. Jerry Kill is the coach. He's the popsicle man from Minnesota, right? From years ago where he's in the snow and he's eating the popsicle. Do you remember that picture?
I don't.
There's a picture. He's got like a fudge bar or something, and he's just eating a popsicle in like just the frozen tundra of Minnesota Gophers football. But either way, their offense clicking. Bowling Green stinks on both sides of the ball. No, give me the Aggies to win and cover.
Yeah, to your point, in the since 2000, they've got 8 double-digit loss seasons at New Mexico, and
That's wild.
Probably 5 or 6 more 9-loss seasons. Honestly, just looking at off the top of my head. So yeah, New Mexico State, they've been a staple on the bottom 10 for years.
Well,
and they seem to be on every SEC team's schedule, like every year.
Mm-hmm. Matt Green. Good news. Excuse me. One more kind of pod in terms of bowl pick'em. Like we got one more pod number 4. There's some good ones. I mean, I think UCF Duke could be spicy. Wisconsin, Oklahoma State.
Kansas and Arkansas.
Yeah, that could be fun. I think the Holiday Bowl could be fun too, honestly. Oregon, North Carolina. Texas Tech, Ole Miss will be high scoring. So there are some fun ones. But then we get to next weekend, which is what we're waiting for, man. Last weekend before the CFP, Tennessee plays that Friday night as a nice little appetizer for the good folks. So, no, very much excited to talk about the New Year's 6 games and all that kind of stuff. But
absolutely. My favorite bowl game is actually coming up in our next pod.
Which is
San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. That's the one where I know where it finally hit me that of how illogical my brand dislike is, because I'm like, Pacific Life Holiday Bowl. That's a normal name. That's a good American name. San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. That's just stupid. It's a dumb name. So I don't know. I feel like the Holiday Bowl is low key always been like one of the best, like the most entertaining like mid-December bowl games. Like it's always like, I don't know. It's always like 2 pretty solid brands, like usually a Pac-12 and like Big 12 team. It kind of seemed like for a long time. This is Oregon, North Carolina, so a Pac-12 ACC matchup. But I don't know. It always seems to be one of the more entertaining games.
For sure. I was wondering, you probably know this, do they still do like the fun bowl season graphics on ESPN? Because I don't watch ESPN throughout the day anymore. So like, that's something I missed. Do you remember the bowl season where they have like the holiday music with all the different games playing, or it's like the bowl season hype videos and stuff and all the different
like the commercials that would play like jingle bells and stuff, but like with college football lyrics to it or something like that. I'm sure, I don't know. I don't watch the ESPN the way I used to either. But I mean, I'm sure they're still.
Do you remember the jingle though? Like the dun, 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 dun. I can't even do it because I have no musical talent whatsoever. But maybe it reminded me of Mark
how's it go again?
I don't know how to do it. It's I wish I could explain it with my words, but I cannot. I'm just gonna send you the video as we're done here.
All right, sounds good.
Matt Green, always a pleasure, my friend, and I will talk to you very soon.
It'll be after Christmas next time we speak, right?
That's true. It will be.
Merry Christmas to you and yours, sir.
Thank you, and you as well. I think it will be the day of, actually. No, day after. What is it? Day of, day after? When is Christmas? Sunday or Saturday?
It's on Sunday. So I think we were talking about record on that Monday, the 26th.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that'll be a day later for our usual audience, So just remember that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I put it up the day of. I might just go ahead and just launch it the same day.
Oh, there you go.
Matt Green, always a pleasure. Thank you as always, and stay warm. We're about to get the cold front where it's like 9 to 21, so I'll see if we even make it.
I did see single digits on the forecast one day. I don't know what the hell that's about.
It's not good. Yeah, Christmas is gonna be cold down here in the South. Matt Green, talk to you Monday.
Yes, sir.